I'm David Marquez. I'm the Executive Director for Economic and Community Development at Bexar County. It's a great privilege to work here. I'm part of the team from San Antonio that works on economic development, and we're all very collaborative trying to grow the economy of San Antonio, Bexar County, and the larger region, including northeastern Mexico. Bexar County is a county in Texas. There are 254 counties in Texas. The entire state has a county. The city of San Antonio is in the middle of Bexar County, and we're in the south central part of the state. And we kind of see ourselves as the primary city of South Texas, which stretches all the way from the Rio Grande Valley to the border of Mexico with Laredo and Eagle Pass in that area. So Bexar County is one of the fastest growing counties in the entire United States. We're over 2 million people and growing rapidly in the area around us. San Antonio is the main city, but we're also a part of the I-35 corridor that leads to Austin. And so the area between Austin and San Antonio is rapidly growing. The city near us, to us, Schertz, which part of it is in Bexar County, is growing very quickly. And then New Braunfels is just beyond that in the neighboring county. But for our purposes, for economic development, we see the entire region, not just the county itself. That's how we evaluate and plan for economic development. Well, I often tell people that this is kind of the northernmost city in Mexico. It's designed like a Mexican city. It has plazas downtown. The culture is very clearly Spanish and Mexican. But we're also on the edge of the part of Texas that was settled by the Germans. So we have a lot of German influence in San Antonio. It's a real crossroads culture, very American, very Mexican, but also very Texan. There's a lot of Western cowboy culture here that was part of our history and still is, farming and agriculture. And then, really 100 years ago, when people began to fly airplanes, this part of the country was an important part when the military began trying to develop an air force. So it's a very diverse economy, a very diverse region. It's a beautiful part of Texas, and we love it very much. It's a great place to live and a great place to run a business. Well, for companies that want to come here, most of them are looking for access to the talent, to the people. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a large population. It's rapidly growing. It's a young population compared to the United States, perhaps in relation to Mexico or some other parts of the country. It's not so young, but it's still our population averages in the lower 30, 32, 34, something like that. And we have a lot of immigration from around the country and around the world moving here. I've lived here my entire life, and I've never ceased to be amazed at how diverse the city has become. It's there are people from India and China and Japan and Spain and Germany and just everywhere. The Middle East. There's a lady that lives in my apartment building who moved here from Iran to go to school, and she's studying AI and doing very well, working on her PhD. So it's a very wonderful place for people to come and establish themselves. And I think that's what helps us be attractive to most companies. Everyone has land and power and water. We certainly have our share of those, but I think what sets us apart is the people. Historically, this has been a city of tourism and a city of federal government, mostly around the military. But about 50 years ago, a group of people decided that they wanted a more diverse economy. And so they set out to grow other sectors. And today, those sectors are all very important. They include the healthcare and biosciences, they include aerospace. We have a very large IT, especially cybersecurity, has become a real specialty for San Antonio. But the county focuses primarily on advanced manufacturing. That's our specialty. And it really began to take off with Toyota's arrival here. They have a plant to build the Tundra pickup truck, as well as the Sequoia SUV. And it's rapidly growing, and there's more growth on the way. So for advanced manufacturing, it's mostly around vehicles, heavy equipment, trucks, and that sort of thing. Those are the primary industries for our region. Well, like most Texas counties, we have incentives that we can offer when companies are investing sufficient capital and bringing well-paying jobs here. We can help with reduction of their taxes, their county tax bill that they would owe to us. And we have the ability to abate those taxes for up to 10 years, up to 100%, depending on the type of company and the amount of investment and the wages and number of jobs, of course. So we offer those types of incentives, but across the community, the city of San Antonio also has tax abatement incentives. Our electric and gas utilities are often helpful in making sure that companies get access to the power and water that they need, the natural gas as well for production. Now, we have other smaller programs that can provide help for skills grants to help companies to train their individuals that they're going to need in the workforce. Because, of course, we want them to hire our people. And if they're not trained and the company can train them, then we're willing to help subsidize that. But even more recently, the county has created its own training program, we call Texas Fast Track. It's a 10-week program designed to put people as entry-level maintenance technicians in manufacturing. We kept hearing from our local manufacturers that that's a harder position to fill, and so we have begun creating a program that we pay for 100%. Companies send us incumbents as well, so they're able to upskill good production workers and get them involved in maintenance technician type of work. And so that fast track is a very key part of our offering to make sure that companies will be successful here. And of course, primarily those in advanced manufacturing. So about 15 years ago, we began trying to evaluate the impact that Toyota had. They opened their plant here in 2005. Um, this is their largest plant, I believe, in the world in terms of the geographic size. And we wanted to see more growth. They have plenty of land to grow there. So we began evaluating how that plant, that specific final assembly facility, impacts the region. When they arrived here, they brought with them suppliers that are located on their site. I believe this is still the only Toyota site in the world that has an on-site supplier park. And currently there are over 20, I think it may be 23 or 24 on-site suppliers, but they're all in the property of Toyota. We wanted to evaluate the larger region. So we evaluated how this plant interacted with other tier one and tier two and tier three suppliers in the area. And frankly, we didn't find a lot of interaction. Now, that is until we looked into Mexico. But once we realized that many of the suppliers for our plant are located in Mexico, then suddenly you see the strength of the region. You see how important the NAFTA corridor, as we called it back then, I-35 in San Antonio, which connects us with Austin and connects us with Dallas. Of course, Dallas is now the headquarters of Plano, in Plano, Texas, of Toyota of North America. And then, of course, there's a General Motors plant in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as well in Arlington. And then more recently, there's the Tesla plant in Austin. So you see this string of plants through Texas that carries on into Mexico, into uh, Monterrey, as well as over in Ramos Arizpe and Saltillo. That whole zone turns out to be a very strong economic region for automotive growth. More recently, we've added industries that are related. They may not be making like light cars or passenger cars or light trucks, but companies like Caterpillar, JCB, International, Navistar, others are opening the Bobcat. So these companies are making equipment that sometimes have the same tier one and tier two needs, and so they're finding success for the same region. We're very focused on that. Our TMASK study we just completed it again at the beginning of last year, and it's a very impressive trajectory of growth for this region in that industry. The Texas-Mexico Automotive Supercluster was something that we came up with. A colleague and I had gone to an automotive show, a supplier show in Detroit, and it got us thinking about the supplier base in our area. And so we looked at the data and we discovered that the data was really either very focused on the United States auto industry or the Mexico auto industry. And there's nothing right or wrong about that, except that if you look at that data, you might have some assumption that the industry that was growing in San Antonio is connected somehow to Wisconsin or Ohio. And in fact, the auto industry doesn't work that way. Most of the products that go into the into the final vehicle come within about 400 miles. And of course, that's why we look at Mexico. So many of the Toyota suppliers are in Mexico, including the frame and chassis. So important components, not just small pieces, but critical tier one suppliers located in Mexico. So when we looked at that, then that gave us a foundation on which we began to develop uh, a data uh, structure that we could evaluate how this industry might grow across the region. We've done three reports since then. The most recent one came out less than a year ago. And so these reports are showing what we predicted would happen, that if we start to gain some momentum, we'll see even further growth. And the growth can happen in somewhat predictable ways and in certain predictable areas. For us in economic development, the advantage then is to take that information and then proactively go after the opportunities that are there. Or for those that have industrial parks, they can look at the data that's in the TMASC report and project where the need might be before it's occurring, and perhaps clarify that there may be areas they were focused on that maybe might lag a little bit before they develop. So it's sort of the closest thing we can get to a crystal ball in terms of helping us look at where this industry will grow. So far, it's been very accurate. It predicted that there would be more plants up and down I-35. It certainly didn't predict that there would be a Tesla plant because there wasn't even a company called Tesla when we started. But then once Tesla arrived, we began getting suppliers, tier one and tier two suppliers in San Antonio. There are probably some in Mexico. There's some to the east of us in Seguin. And that's what we predicted. The more final assembly facilities, then the density of the tier one and tier two would grow around those plants within a certain amount of distance. And that's where the needs happens for the industrial parks, the other support services that those companies need to be successful. That's how the industry is growing, and we our studies show that. So that's its primary purpose. The purpose of TMAS is to help uh, planners and companies and economic development and elected officials and other governments to understand how this industry will grow over time. We would love to see more collaboration. We can certainly begin marketing our region in a different way. And so we're looking to that maybe to the future. In the initial studies, that was our goal, was to promote the region, especially because at that time there was a very poor understanding of how Texas and Mexico's automotive industries interacted, especially around the world. We understand how integrated our economies are. Those of us who live in South Texas or in Texas anywhere or in northeastern Mexico, we understand very clearly that we're really one large economy. People travel back and forth for family, for business, for medical reasons, for entertainment, for tourism. It's a very common thing, just as it is in other parts of North America, other parts of Mexico. Just that some of the states in our region are in Mexico, and then on this side of the border, it's Texas. So we want to see ourselves that way. And if we can begin doing that, our vision was to show the rest of the world. I think this, in my view, this is somewhat unique in perhaps in the world where you have such a dynamic, developed economy like the United States and Texas's economy next to an area that is so robust in industrial, but still has that growth potential of northeastern Mexico. They lend their strengths to one another to build something that really should be promoted more and more. But we're looking to revitalize the idea of collaboratively marketing the region. So we have a good relationship with Mexico, of course, and more importantly, I think with the Mexican nationals who live in this area, because we all have an understanding of what's possible. We have taken trade missions to Mexico. Most recently, one of our commissioners was in Monterrey, looking at a plant of a company that has a plant here, International Navistar. And there are other opportunities for companies to be traveling to Mexico. When we're recruiting uh, OEM uh, production facilities into our region, we're very quick to tell them that their supply chain may be in Mexico, and we're even taking companies into Monterrey, Saltillo, the border, the Rio Grande Valley, to try to help them understand that they will find greater success in their supply chain strategy by looking to northeastern Mexico than they might if they try to look elsewhere into the U.S. That's just by the nature of where Texas is in relation to the Midwest or the Southeast or the northeastern corridors where there are other dense clusters. We have our own cluster, and that's the point of the study. I wish I had invested better because when I see the growth, I really could not have predicted it would be quite as strong and diverse as it is. I knew that it would grow. At least that was the data told us that this region was going to receive a good amount of industrial investment. We predicted maybe more would come from Asia, even from China. Back in 2005, when we were evaluating our opportunities, China was still under a previous regime. They were much more westernized or looking that direction. And we thought that perhaps they would follow the pathway of the Japanese and the Koreans and the Germans and the other overseas manufacturers who distribute their cars in North America, and then they build distribution networks, and then they build a dealership network, and then they start to import, and eventually they need to produce. Of course, things changed in the years since then. But by and large, where I've been impressed is that the other types of companies, JCB, this huge company that builds industrial commercial equipment that's based in England, privately held company. It's very impressive. They have a global market share that's very, very strong around the world. And in the products that they make, they're often the leader in the world. But they don't have a strong U.S. presence yet. Their intention is to grow that. They have a plant in Savannah, Georgia. This will be their second plant in North America. And I can assure you, they've been to Mexico numerous times looking at opportunities to partner with suppliers in that area. So I think the forecast is for high growth and specialization. I'm very bullish still, very strong in the belief that the uh, manufacturing is more resilient to the type of disruption that might be caused by AI. And at the same time, I think that there still has to be a place where people are making the things that we all want and need. And I think we learned through the pandemic, that we learned through the recession before that, that global supply chains, if they're stretched too far around the world, they're not predictable and they can be vulnerable. But having one that stretches between these two great economies as one economy, the northeastern Mexico, Tamaulipas, Coahuila, Nuevo León, San Luis Potosí, and Texas, that gives us a real strength to be a platform for our region, for North America, for the Western Hemisphere, and even for global export. That's what we're looking at for the future. So everyone, of course, is wondering what will happen with the tariffs, how will that affect our region, and it clearly will have an effect. I think the thing that is the most difficult is the uncertainty. And we've lived through that already a couple of times with the USMCA transition. This will eventually stabilize, and we'll have an idea of how it operates. That once we know what tariffs are applied, do they apply to finished goods? Do they apply to raw materials? What if it's blended? Then companies will come to a conclusion and figure out a way to make it work because the opportunities are still too strong for us between Mexico and Texas and Mexico and the United States. It's not just Texas. It's just that we're on the front end of it, and we have, I think, the best position to leverage the strength of Mexico for the benefit of both of us. So I wish I understood the tariff logic a little better. I think eventually it'll get resolved and we'll be back to some new normal of how we deal with cross-border trade between the allies of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Well, we don't have a lot to do with the tariff process at the county level. And I will say that it's certainly brought a lot of attention from companies that are thinking that they need to be in the United States as the administration has proposed. It's a question of whether they can be successful or not. That and especially quickly enough to keep their market share. that's the great disruption is it's happening at a speed that, especially for advanced manufacturing, there's lead times for transformers and for equipment and for steel. There's just so much that goes into it that it can't turn on a dime. So I think we'll see some further uh, softening of the tariff idea around the USMCA region, as well as around industries like automotive that are clearly benefiting everyone when we develop production lines that go across the entire region. So I don't think it'll have an effect in the short term. I think the midterm will be resolved, and I think the long term will be remain very strong.
So we have to keep working, right?
What option do we have? We just can't stay home and stay in bed. We have to get up and work on finding solutions that will work for industry, will work for the national agenda for both countries. I think President Sheinbaum has clearly done an amazing job in guiding Mexico through these new challenges that we have. She's put out some very impressive strategies around connections to the border with high-speed rail and other things that are progressive and will help benefit the people, help benefit the industry. That's the beauty of the automotive industry, is that the better the industry does, the more the people who live there can benefit, because the jobs are fantastic with benefits and all of those things. So if you're pro labor, pro people, pro getting your residents to advance, that the automotive industry is for you. And if you're pro capital and making money and investment, then the automotive industry is for you. So across this entire manufacturing region, we should see very healthy growth that benefits us from it truly is a rising tide. Many people use that example, but that story of that a rising tide lifts all boats. But for the automotive industry, I really do see that it's true. Sometimes the tide is rising, but the people are chained to the bottom and they eventually drown. But in this industry, everything does tend to rise. At least that's been our experience in San Antonio and Bexar County, and I think throughout this whole region.